I'm Mary Matz, creator of Twisted Yarns. When I was developing the practice project for the Garter Bar, I created a very large swatch in order to practice some of the required techniques. Seems reasonable, doesn't it? Well, since I had as a relatively straightforward project, I just figured I'd whip it up. By the way, those are famous last words. Instead, my swatch revealed a very special challenge with using the full Kriskrafter Garter Bar on the LK150. This is especially apparent when turning the knitting. When the Kriskrafter Garter Bar is joined, it becomes more flexible. When you add the weights required to keep the knitting from riding up and off the garter bar along the entire length, it bows. This bowing makes it nearly impossible to even line up the stitches to the needles and return them to the needle bed without snagging and dropping stitches. Here's the fix. Purchase an aluminum L bracket. Mine measures 1/16 inch by 1/2 inch by 3/4 of an inch by 4 feet long. The short side of the L needs to be no more than 1/2 inch. This is important because you do not want that side to cover up any of the slots that are in the garter bar. Cut the length down to about 38.5 inches. That's the length of the two halves of the garter bar put together. Lay the base of the garter bar over the 1/2 inch side of the L bracket and snug it up against the corner. Using a marker, mark the short side of the L bracket through the two inside holes on each half of the garter bar so that you have a total of 4 marks. Then move the garter bar out of the way and drill 4 holes as marked on the bracket. Use the holes on the garter bar to judge the size of the drill bit. The diameter of the hole should be about 4 millimeters to 5 millimeters. Some of my friends drilled more holes, but I find 4 is quite adequate to stabilize the garter bar, yet easy enough to undo when it's not needed in one full piece. Use the 4 nuts and bolts from the garter bar set to join the garter bar pieces to the bracket. I purchased additional stainless steel bolts and nuts with nylon centers to fit through the holes for 2 reasons. First, I've lost a few nuts and bolts at inopportune times in the past, and second, nuts with nylon centers tend to stay in place and don't vibrate loose as I work. Just remember, you only want the bolt to fit through the holes and extend just enough to secure the nut. Now that we have our enhanced Kriskrafter garter bar, let's give it a try. This is where you start using your garter bar. And we are going to turn this. We've just done 3 rows of just straight knitting. And I'm just doing random at this point. So, I'm going to put my garter bar here. I'm going to pull out. And I'm going to align my end of this stopper with the end of the bed. And you notice that extension. I need that extension because I need to pull this out. Now, on this side, I want you to see that I have this pulling out 1/2 needle on this side, and that's perfect. So I'm pulling all these out and I'm dropping this into place. The reason I pull out 1/2 needle on this side, or that extra needle, and 1/2 of it is exposed, I should say, is because when I pull this one out, if I didn't, and this fell into place, I wouldn't be able to pull all those needles out. There'd be one stuck and I'd have to lift up my stoppers. But that's not a big problem. So there I put my stoppers in place. Now I'm going to just use my garter bar or your fingers to push the knitting back. Now I find it is easier if I unthread my carriage at this time before I flip it to get it out of the way. But I'm going to stick it over here on the end, around it, just so that it doesn't get in my way. It'll pop off, I'm sure. Now, I have my reinforced garter bar, and I've already pushed my knitting back, which opened all the latches. But if you think you popped one back, just use your little cut-off card to open them up. And this has, with this reinforcement, it has a little shelf on it. And so I use that to hold on to, and it works really nicely. Now, align your garter bar so that the edge is all the way to the end, but not extending beyond the needle bed. So you want to center it. And the reason you do that is because now I'm getting it on, and I'm going to place my garter bar right onto the knitting needles, into the hooks. And when I'm doing a full bed, here's one more little tip. If you pull your knitting toward you, but not all the way onto the garter bar yet, you will open or shut, just like you did the other, you'll shut all the latches. Now, it's real easy to pull them on because you just don't want to get one stuck halfway between on and off, and then you have to push them all back on the needle bed. So now, I have all my knitting onto the garter bar. Okay? Once again, use this like a little shelf. And I actually kind of like it because it gives me a handle. And push this forward to open all the latches again, and just lift it off. Now this is heavily weighted, and that's what causes the garter bar without the reinforcement to bend or bow. So now I'm going to lift it up and turn it around. I'm trying to do this so that you can see what I'm doing without knocking all my weights off. So I've just turned it around, and the little plate or the little reinforcement also allows me to hold and shift my hands down the garter bar a lot easier. Now I've just pushed my yarn out of the way so that I can realign, and you're just going to push those hooks under the loops and on. Now, once again, you're going to pull down on your garter bar and check to make sure everything is on appropriately. Okay, and I'm going to then drop my garter bar through, and it hung up on that last one, and I thought it was clear. Now I'm stuck because I can't put my garter bar back on, and I can't do anything else. So this is how you fix it. Okay, obviously it's hung up somewhere, and it's this very last stitch. The easiest way to fix it is this. Take your plate off, and it's going to inevitably happen. And you're going to push your knitting back, so that the hook is so that the knitting is behind the hooks, the latch. So I'm going to push it back. That closes the latch, and I'm going to retract it and drop just that one stitch off. Now the other ones next to it will sort of do the same thing, but I can also put it on my eyelet tool, but I need to get it off. Okay, so I'm going to push this back so I don't lose any other stitches. You got to be careful of that. I'm going to retract this, and there's my loop closed. I'm going to pull it through. There we go. Now I just have one stitch to fix. That released my garter bar. My hold is in place, so this will not knit. I'm going to take my free pass thread up my machine and continue with it. So I'm going to do that one more time. 1, 2, and 3. So now you saw how to easily fix that. Now, let's do it again. Move your carriage off to the side. Now this is just a swatch. You put this in place. I've got it halfway over on that first needle. I'm going to pull these out. Drop this in place. Push all the knitting back. Unthread my carriage. Take my garter bar. Put it in place. I can feel one of the needles is not open. Yep, there was a little one that popped back. Okay, place my garter bar, aligning the edges with the edges of the garter bar with the edge of the needle bed. And this time I'm going to push this over here. And I'm going to push my knitting forward. Not all the way yet. Just enough to close all the latches. Then I'm going to do and pull it all off. When you're doing it across a long length of stitches, there we go. Now, tip it and push it back. Open all the latches again. Lift it off. Turn your work. Align your knitting. Align your knitting. Let's see if I get it this time. And just push it on. Now, whoop, that one missed a couple of stitches there. I got those. Alright, I think I'm alright. Let's do the final test. Drop your needles out, and there you go. That was a perfect transfer. So for part 6 of the series, we're finally going to get to our practice project. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please take a moment to subscribe and ring the bell to receive notifications of upcoming videos and events. Happy machine knitting!